Going live. You're live. What's up, everyone? Aaron Negler here with Cheesehead TV, coming to you live on Tuesday afternoon. Heading into the offseason. We're on to the offseason. We've wiped away all thoughts of the NFC Championship game. Look at Corey Banky pouring drinks behind me. Come on now. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope you're having a good Tuesday. Hope you've got the cobwebs of a brutal loss in the NFC Championship out of your mind because you have to get the best fresh deals on the best products sent right to your phone. With the Festival Foods Mobile Club, you'll have exclusive offers, new product alerts, and the latest updates in the palm of your hand. It's quick and convenient, making the mobile club perfect for even the busiest shoppers. So what are you waiting for? Text Packers to 78402. That's Packers to 78402 to sign up for the Festival Foods Mobile Club. I know you guys are going to do that, and you're going to run out, get yourself some Festival Foods love. Hello to everybody in the comments section. Hashtag War on Rogers at an all-time high. See, no, sir. I don't believe so. There's nothing wrong with pointing out when he doesn't play well, which he most certainly did not, especially in the first half of that game on Sunday night. A war on Rogers. Ben Baldwin is your general in the war on Rogers. Hey, Nags, what's up? Day? Break? Let me tell you, not a whole hell of a lot other than getting ready for free agency, the draft, made my travel arrangements for the combine today. Off season's in motion, baby. Getting ready. If you haven't checked it out yet, I went through a number of the free agents to be on the Packers roster. Check that out at cheeseheadtv.com here on the channel if you wish. There's a separate video about that. Amari Cooper, do it, Goody. Dusty, I'd be very surprised if he went that route in free agency. The biggest name I might suspect they go after in free agency would probably be Robbie Anderson from the Jets, a guy that they tried to trade for during the season. But mostly, I think they will look to the draft, a very deep draft at wide receiver this season to try and augment their offensive attack. Jack Carpenter, thank you so much for the super chat. Sad about the ending, but loved the ride. I think that's a perfect way to put the 2019 season into perspective. I think it was a very tough ending, but it was a fantastic ride throughout. We need a few changes ASAP, Midwestern Mary says. Well, that's the offseason plays out at a glacial pace. So I understand the urgency in the sense of trying to capitalize on a championship window, but um, don't forget, a lot of headlines will be made early in free agency, and a lot of those deals will be fool's gold. I think Brian Gutekunst has shown that when it's necessary to strike, he will. Signing both Smith brothers the second day of free agency this last time around would point to that. But if, for whatever reason, the Packers don't make a ton of moves early on, just remember that those initial moves often can be yeah, a problem for you later on. Draft a receiver, but sign a free agent tight end. I'd be very surprised if they went and uh, signed another veteran free agent tight end. They've done that quite a bit. I think Sternberger is the real deal. Augment him by bringing back Mercedes Lewis for one more year and add in, the Tanyan experiment. And I think they're pretty good at tight end. But I'm not going to dismiss it completely out of hand. I think Brian Gutekunst and his staff will look at everything, no doubt. Once again, the battle for roster spot at wide receiver is going to be fantastic. EQ returns. Draft picks will come too. I'm ready. Josh, I very much agree. I think a lot of people forget EQ. I think he will be given the opportunity to compete and show what he's got. He can bounce back from that ankle injury. But it's no given that he returns the same as he was prior to the injury. I mean, look at Geronimo Allison. He had an outstanding start to the year last year, got hurt, came back, and was never the same. So it's not to say that that's the path EQ is going to go down, but you just never know. Dustin, thank you for the super chat. Who could you see as a surprise cut to save salary this offseason, if anyone? Thanks for being our tour guide for this amazing ride of a season. Thank you so much for following along. I always say it's hard to predict it's going to be what the surprise cut's going to be because obviously then it wouldn't be a surprise. I think the most of the usual suspects or the suspects that we have are pretty well known. I think the one name that gets bandied about a lot, or the two names, are Jimmy Graham and Lane Taylor. Um, Neither one of those would surprise me. Although after Jimmy Graham's cryptic tweet last night, one would think he's thinking of hanging it up and retiring. But I think those are the two most likely names that we're going to see. What's in store at Cheesehead TV? I'm glad you asked, Teddy. We'll be giving you guys a lot more video content this offseason. The content structure upon which Cheesehead TV is built, namely the website slash brand slash video presence, is going to change pretty significantly. But I think you guys are going to like it. We're trying to drag ourselves a bit into the 21st century, slowly but surely. But just stay tuned. You're going to see some really good stuff. I'm headed to the combine as I do every year. I'll be giving you all the latest updates from Indianapolis at the end of February, and then Corey and I are talking about this isn't official yet, but we're talking about maybe going to Vegas for the draft after they dropped that boat stuff this afternoon. It got a little too fun to pass up, so we may go to Vegas for the draft, but we'll see. Regardless, we'll be covering the draft head to toe for you guys in every Packers angle. So make sure you stick around for all of that. Nicholas, thanks so much for the super chat. Our receivers have similar traits, need more speed. Could not agree more. It's an ongoing theme, been an ongoing theme for years. I completely understand why the Packers as a whole, as a organizational philosophy, going all the way back to Ron Wolf, like their the big strong receivers. The weather turns in November and December. They want guys who can outmuscle defenders, make things happen over the middle of the field, especially back in the day when they were running the West Coast offense. But football has evolved big time, and the explosiveness at receiver is noticeable. And there's no doubt about it. So I do think that will be a priority this offseason. John, thanks for the super chat. If Pettin gets fired, any names to keep an eye on? John, be on the lookout. I'll have something up on that later this week. I don't want to just throw out a bunch of stuff willy nilly, trying to kind of dive a bit more into it before I opine. Have to think there's somebody in LaFleur's coaching past that he has come across that he has an idea about, but who that might be, I wouldn't know right now. I appreciate all your hard work, Midwestern Mary. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. What position do you expect Green Bay to go after in free agency, if any? It's a good question. I know a lot of people have talked about wide receiver. I'd be surprised if they spent big dollars at wide receiver in free agency, although that's not to dismiss it out of hand. The one position I definitely don't think they're going to spend big money on in free agency is inside linebacker. Whether that means Blake Martinez or a street free agent, I think they will let Martinez walk, and I think they will draft at that position. It's been needed for a long time. You guys, anybody who follows the Packers with any regularity knows that's been an issue for some time. I know Matt had tried to get his brother from San Francisco at the beginning of the year. Do you think he'll try again? Maybe he makes a cursory phone call, but I can't imagine Shanahan allows him to interview. I know he values him as a coach, but can't hurt to try, right? Hey, Aaron, do you think Green Bay would spend premium draft capital on a quarterback while Rodgers has 3 years left on his contract, or more likely to load up around him and ride it out till his end? It's a good question and one that I don't doubt they're going to be wrestling with uh, quite a bit. Look, if there's somebody that Gutekunst thinks has a chance to be Rodgers' successor, they'll make that pick. And if that's a premium pick, so be it. Don't forget, they were going to draft Drew Lock before the Broncos jumped up over them. So if there's a guy that Gutekunst is absolutely sold on, I have zero doubt he'll make that pick. Because, look, you can't go through too many years without a true successor before it becomes scramble time, and then maybe having to overpay, whether that's in free agency or with a draft pick, to go get somebody if Aaron decides to retire, gets injured, what have you, and you're left holding the bag. So I don't doubt, there's a big part of being a GM is looking down the road, preparing for years down the road, not just next year. So the time has certainly come for Gutekunst to start wrapping his head around that. Would you pay Balaga? That's an excellent question. I talked about that a little bit in my video this morning. Make sure you check that out if you haven't. I do think they will talk to Brian about an extension, something I didn't think was possible prior to this season. I thought for sure they would let him play out this last year on his deal and then let him walk. As well as he played this year, as available as he was, I do think they'll approach him. I'd be very surprised if they offered him a above market rate. I think they'll tell him, look, here's a 1-year deal, pretty team friendly with escalators to get you into the highest paid range if you stay on the field. Now, is Brian going to accept that? There's where the mystery really happens for me. I do see it both ways. I could understand him wanting to just stick it out in Green Bay and finish his career where he began. Clearly got deep roots in the community, really well liked within the organization. David Bakhtiari getting very emotional after Sunday's game about wanting to keep him in the fold. But at the same time, it's his last chance to hit that free market and to make big, big bucks. And I do not doubt for a second that he would get it out on the open market. So, yeah, that's to me, it really comes down to how much is the pull of playing in Green Bay with Bakhtiari, with Rodgers, trying to make one last run at a Super Bowl. How much does that outweigh his desire to go get a final big payday? Um, and Lord knows that's a really tough decision and only one that he can make, he and his family. Do you think that Shanahan and Salah just have LaFleur's number and we're going to get pounded whenever we play them? No, Dan, I don't. I do think they clearly had a better game plan. I do think LaFleur was foolhardy as for how he approached that game offensively. But is Mike Pettin going to continue to be the defensive coordinator? That's something we don't know. And I think that was a big component of how Shanahan took advantage of things on Sunday night. Um, I do think that LaFleur needs to take big time lessons from both of those games. But I don't think it's a question of it's always going to be that way. The NFL just doesn't work like that usually. Not always, but usually. How would you like bringing Taysom Hill back? Nicholas, now that we've got a coach that might be creative enough to use him, yeah, that'd be kind of fun. But my old thing about Taysom Hill has always been I'm not a huge fan of taking the ball out of Aaron Rodgers and or Aaron Jones' hands. Now you're taking it out of both their hands if you give it to Taysom Hill. And I do think Taysom is talented. But he's older. He's got a lengthy injury history. And what are you going to pay him? Where does he fit in your salary structure? How much do you pay him? Uh, all those questions, I guess we'll get the answers to as the offseason unfolds. But ultimately, I'd be very surprised if he ends up anywhere other than back in New Orleans. The real DK, thanks so much for the super chat. Did you hear Hawkins' clip about pet in practice? I did indeed. If you guys haven't, I highly recommend you check it out. I think there's something to it. I don't think it's as simple as kind of the narrative that he paints there, but I do think he's onto something in regards to their practice habits and the offense trying to game plan for the next opponent and the defense game planning to beat that offense. And Shanahan kind of tucking that away. I don't think there's any question. It all plays into a game plan, how you approach the game. Information is power, and every bit of information is useful. And Shanahan made the most of every bit of information he had on Pettin on Sunday night. Uh, should Pettin be replaced, Teddy? That's probably going to be a big, big question around Green Bay all week. Really, the MO in question here is LaFleur. And not being able to get inside his mind, as you ask here, should he be replaced? In my opinion, if I know someone that I think, I trust a lot and I want to see do well and I have a long history with, yeah, I'd probably make the move because we've talked about a lot. LaFleur was pretty much handed Pettin and told we'd really like it if you kept him around. Now LaFleur's gone through a year, gone 14-3, 14-4, and coming within a game of the Super Bowl, he's maybe got a little bit more juice to be able to say, I want to go get my own guy. But really, ultimately, you got to think that's LaFleur's decision. I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, what decision he makes, and then how Gutekunst reacts uh, with his roster construction during the offseason. Trade up in the draft, but it really, really depends on who they have their eye on. If there's a guy they love, and hey, Seattle's picking in front of them, so maybe it happens yet again where Gutekunst calls Schneider to jump up. Um, Next, check out the wide receiver baller, Laviska. Oh yeah, I think it was. I think that's who DJ had in his mock draft. If you haven't seen it on NFL.com, Daniel Jeremiah has his first mock draft 1.0 up, and he has the Packers taking a wide receiver. Let's see. Do you think they should draft a right tackle if Bulaga leaves? I think they should probably draft a tackle regardless. I'm not so sure about using a premium pick on one unless there's one sitting there at 30 that's just perfect. Um, Also, does Valdir want to play another year? Will he be back? Would he be back on a 1-year deal? Because he played pretty damn well when Balaga was unavailable. He could be a cheap 1-year option that makes it a little bit easier to move on from Balaga and then draft a guy that you can develop. That wouldn't be a terrible way to go. Um, But we'll see. Again, there's a lot of moving parts here, a lot of questions to be answered over the course of the next few weeks. People want to get rid of Pettin but not Hackett. Why do you want to get rid of Hackett? You're blaming him for the herky jerky nature of the offense. I think much more than any one coordinator and or person on the coaching staff, the biggest issue on offense was kind of the attempt to marry what LaFleur had brought to the table as far as the playbook, and then what Rodgers was quote unquote comfortable with from his time with Mike McCarthy, and trying to make those two work together. To me, more than anything, the offensive evolution that needs to happen in Green Bay this offseason is absolutely moving towards LaFleur's playbook and away from what they did with McCarthy. That's just my personal opinion, but I don't think you can blame Hackett for the issues on offense. That seems odd. Doug, thanks so much for the super chat. Grant, so thank you for the super chat. Roger's zen slash apathetic aura is starting to become old for me. I don't see much excitement or urgency from him, and it's strange to me as much as I've always supported and loved the guy. Thoughts? I understand where you're coming from. I understand the apathetic reading of his body language, the close ups of him after another incompletion, etc. It's hard because you see him when they're winning and they're scoring touchdowns, and he's pointing at LaFleur and he's hot, jumping into receivers, and it's all good. And everyone on Twitter is, "Oh, I love this team. Oh, he's having fun again. It's great," etc. When they're losing, you get what you're talking about, the apathetic stuff, the lack of emotion, etc. It's hard for me to kill him for that because he's always been like that. It's interesting how it's maybe grating on people more because we've seen it for so long. But as I said earlier this year, he was exactly like that when he was winning MVPs. And it was fine. No one really took issue with it. Just a few people did. But most people, that's who he is. So it's hard for me to get all upset about it now when that's exactly what he was like when he was winning 2 MVPs. That's just me. But like I said, I completely understand that reaction. I really do. And I think part of it too is, for me anyway, is a reaction to what Brett Favre was like. And that's totally unfair. And I recognize that. But as a young man, when Favre was a quarterback and coming up and that team growing and watching Favre evolve, I loved Favre's energy and his infectious energy and how he would run and tackle his teammates and his fist pumps and all that. I loved that. So that when you see Aaron Rodgers, who's very much kind of the polar opposite of that, the belts is one thing that took off, obviously, but he's not a guy who pumps his fist and tackles his teammates and is exuberant. And, he's very, very different. So for me, I think some people are kind of maybe reacting off of that. There's a big difference there. But again, Aaron Rodgers' body language, all that stuff was the exact same when he was winning MVPs and Super Bowls. So it's hard for me to kill him for it now. Doug, thanks for the super chat. Well, I do believe the window is closing with Rodgers. I sure don't believe it's closed yet. They can make another run. I completely agree. I 1000% agree. I do think they need to change their MO, though, and that includes his personal MO when it comes to their offensive attack. He cannot be Superman anymore. For every time that they face the Raiders and he has a perfect quarterback rating and he's throwing for 4 or 5 touchdowns, etc., there's a game where they're going up against a really good defense and he cannot carry that load anymore. He just can't. Now, does he need help? Unquestionably. No doubt about it. But Sunday night is a perfect example of, okay, we're going to put the game in 12's hands when it should have been in 33's hands. They have to start making that transition to the kind of game that John Elway played his last couple years when they were leaning on Terrell Davis rather than John Elway. John Elway was still making killer throws, big time plays, etc. He just wasn't asked to carry the load on offense. And that is exactly what the Packers have to do with Aaron Rodgers these next few years. Do you think they should take a chance at linebacker rather than being safe with Martinez? Ismail, I don't think there's much choice there. I would be absolutely shocked if they pay Martinez. I think they will let him walk, and I think they will look to the draft to try and fill that void. Now, is that at pick 30? Is that in the second day, third day? I can't tell you, but I will be very, very surprised if they don't draft an inside linebacker. Do you think we should do what the Broncos did with Peyton Manning and sell it for the future to win now? I don't think Brian Gutekunst is ever going to operate like that. I don't think that's how the Packers want to operate. Would I do it? I always say I'd make a terrible GM. I'd probably make all sorts of bad deals. I'd be like Mike Sherman, signing over the hill free agents in the search of a final push for Brett Favre to get to the Super Bowl. You know, I think the Packers are in really good hands with Brian Gutekunst because he wouldn't make deals like that. So the idea of, yeah, you could sell out, try and go get a Super Bowl. There's no guarantee, however you go about it. But look where the Broncos have been. I mean, the one good move, the one big signing, the one big push that John Elway made was going to get Peyton Manning. He built that defense with free agents, and they won a Super Bowl. But they have been in absolute misery since then, simply because John Elway can't find a quarterback. So to me, it's a big risk. Yeah, you could go all out and try and go buy that Super Bowl, but are you willing to go into 20 years, a 20-year funk afterwards? I kind of like going to the playoffs. I like having a chance at winning the Super Bowl every year. That's just me. It's just where I'm at. Packerman80, thanks for the super chat. Who is out there to replace Petton? I'll be looking into that later this week. That's one of the things I'll be looking at throughout tomorrow, and I'll have a video up on it probably on Thursday. Now I'll watch them hire somebody on Wednesday. Ismail, thanks for the super chat. Thoughts on us drafting Jacob Eason? Best upside. I haven't looked at anything in regards to draft prospects yet. Let me get through free agency first. We will have lots of draft content coming up on Cheesehead TV. And as I get more familiar with the prospects, I'll give a few more opinions on them. Draft another running back, considering Matt LaFleur's offense and Aaron Jones' contract coming up. Kyle, I'll be surprised if they don't look at a running back in this draft. No doubt about it. Now, I don't think it'll be a premium pick. I don't think it'll be even the first 2 days, but I'll be surprised if they don't take one on day 3. No question. Do you believe AJ Green makes sense? Also, how much cap space are we projected to have after extending Kenny Clark? Well, actually, Preston, Corey and I were just talking about that. They're about to, if Jimmy and Lane Taylor come off the books after the Aaron Rodgers adjustment, they're looking at around $45 million in cap space. Kenny Clark's going to probably eat a good chunk of that up. I would think if they want to front load like they normally do, they are a pay-as-you-go team. That's what they've always done under Russ Ball. So it's hard to say without seeing an actual deal for Clark, but he's going to cost a pretty penny. There's no doubt about it. Bach, thanks so much for the super chat. I thought Fox Sports posting a video of the Packers walking into the locker room after they lost the championship game was disrespectful and unnecessary. I very much disagree with that assessment. I think it's part of the game. They have just lost. That was part of the game. That is part of the narrative. Their job on Fox is not to cheerlead for one team or another. It is to tell the story of the game. Part of that story is the Packers getting their ass kicked. They showed the aftermath of that. I have zero problem with that. What free agents do you think Green Bay should target this offseason? Alex, I can't say that there are any specific free agents that I would target. I would think they probably look at Robbie Anderson from the Jets at wide receiver simply because they tried to trade for him. And if he does hit the market, it would make sense they would try and go get him. But any of the big names, I'd be surprised if they made a big splash for anybody in particular. How would you characterize LaFleur's scheme this first year? Joshua, a bit of a mess, a smushing together of two disparate ideas in what LaFleur learned from Shanahan and McVay and what Rodgers liked to do under McCarthy. They tried to smush those together, and I think it wasn't very successful. And I think they need to do a lot of soul searching as to what they want to be going forward. As I said earlier in the video, I think they need to get closer to what the Shanahan McVay model is rather than making the quarterback comfortable with what he's always done. That's just me. That's just something I'm into, to quote Boogie Nights. All right, everybody. Hey, just remember, if you want to get fresh deals on the best products sent right to your phone, Festival Foods has got you covered. With the Festival Foods Mobile Club, you'll have exclusive offers, new product alerts, and the latest updates in the palm of your hand. It's quick and convenient, making the Mobile Club perfect for even the busiest shoppers. What are you waiting for? Text Packers to 78402. That's text Packers to 78402 to sign up for the Festival Foods Mobile Club. Thanks a lot, guys. Sorry if I couldn't get to your question. It's amazing. So many of you each and every day show up, over 300 of you right now. I'll be back tomorrow, chatting Packers each and every day during the offseason. I'll have another video up later this week about the defensive coordinator search, if there is to be one. And in the meantime, make sure you check out all the latest stuff at cheeseheadtv.com and hit like, hit subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. Cheesehead TV. We're devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide.